Hello, everybody, and welcome to Inside William & Mary's School of Marine Science at the Virginia Institute of Marine Science, our four-part webinar series. I'm really excited for you all to join us tonight for part 4 of our webinar series on navigating the graduate school application process. My name is John Griffin, and I am the Assistant Director for Admissions and Student Affairs here at the School of Marine Science. We have a great panel that will be joining us tonight. 2 current VIMS students will join us tonight to talk about their experience in applying to graduate school. We'll have Rachel Dixon, who's a current VIMS PhD student in our Department of Fisheries Science, and we'll also have Luke Frankel, who's a current VIMS Master of Science student in our Department of Biological Sciences. Also joining us tonight will be 2 VIMS faculty. The first will be Dr. Molly Mitchell, who is a VIMS graduate. She earned her master's in 2003 and her PhD in 2018 from us in our Department of Biological Sciences. Molly is now here at VIMS as a research assistant professor, and she's also the MA program director. So for any of you interested in applying for the MA program, you're going to get to interact a lot with Molly during the application process and then enrolling here. Also joining us tonight, I'm really excited for Dr. BK Song to be here. BK is an associate professor here at the School of Marine Science in our Department of Biological Sciences. BK is also the chair of our admissions committee. During his time being on the admission committee, BK has probably read more applications than he can even imagine. So he has a really good understanding of what works really well in an application and what makes students stand out. And then some things that maybe don't work so well or some things that go unanswered. So I'm really happy to have BK and Molly join me tonight to talk about that side of the house in terms of reviewing applications and what they're looking for in terms of students. Before I get to turn it over to our phenomenal panelists, you get to listen to me talk for just a little bit longer as I give you an overview of who VIMS in the School of Marine Science is, as well as some of the nitty-gritty details about our admissions process. The first thing is that the School of Marine Science at VIMS is actually one of William & Mary's 5 graduate schools. For those of you who do not know, William & Mary is a globally recognized university located in Williamsburg, Virginia. VIMS and the School of Marine Science are actually located about 30 minutes east of the William & Mary main campus in Gloucester Point, Virginia, which allows us to be, as you can see in this upper right-hand corner photo, directly on the water, which is exactly where marine scientists want to be. The VIMS campus is located on the York River, which feeds into the Chesapeake Bay. So it provides us with great access to the ecosystems that we all love to experience and research. Here at the School of Marine Science, we provide graduate programs in our MA, MS, and PhD in marine science. We'll go into those further here in a little bit. We also have 4 academic departments. We have our aquatic health sciences, our biological sciences, our fishery science, and our physical science department here at the School of Marine Science, which allows our students to really pursue a lot of in-depth and interdisciplinary research and academic programs throughout all the different disciplines of marine science. Also, and really prominently for the School of Marine Science and VIMS in general, is that we're one of the largest research institutes of marine science in the United States. We have anywhere from mid-80s to 100 graduate students on campus any semester, which allows our students to have a really robust and supportive community in which to surround themselves with during their study. As for those programs that I was just talking about, we offer two different program tracks that we like to call. We have our MA in Marine Science, which we title our professional track. The MA in Marine Science is designed for students to enter the workforce as marine science professionals. And so that's for students who are wanting to go and apply marine science in fields such as education, outreach, business, policy, law, anything along those lines. And so that program is really centered around the professional development and career development for our students and is really focused on our capstone project and our internship. Whereas our MS and our PhD in marine science is our research track. These programs are designed for students who wish to pursue research-focused marine science careers at an advanced level. So these are for individuals who are wanting to pursue maybe a faculty position at a university or college, or for individuals who want to spend all of their time in the field or in the lab doing the forefront of scientific research in marine science and working on those publications and applying for research grants and fellowships. Those programs are centered around a thesis and a dissertation. What you also need to be aware of is that the program that you're considering or applying for will have different tracks of admission. This is more on our end to be aware of, but it's also important for you to understand. If you're applying for our research track, which is our MS bypass, or our PhD track, you're not just applying for admissions to the School of Marine Science, you're also applying for admissions into the lab of that faculty member that you're interested in being being a student of. So what that means is that you need to be reaching out to your prospective advisor before you apply to make sure and ask them if they're even recruiting a student. We have plenty of faculty members who aren't even thinking about recruiting a student in the upcoming year. So applying to them might not allow you admission into the School of Marine Science. So just be aware of that as you're thinking about the programs that you're applying for. Admissions for those research tracks, the admission decision will be based on a decision of both your prospective advisor and your associate dean. So that's how you would be receiving an offer of admissions here. Our MA degree track is different in that you're not applying for a faculty member's lab. You're actually applying for general admissions into the MA program. So this means you don't need to reach out to an advisor right now, and you don't need to identify an advisor in your application. What we will do, however, is the MA program director, who you'll hear from later, will use the application material that you provide us with to best match you with a VIMS faculty member who will act as your mentor during your capstone project. But that is more on our end, and we'll use your application to really help support that decision. And then the admission decision for anybody in the MA program track will be based on a decision between the MA program director and the associate dean. So these are really important differences to come to understand as you are applying to here at the School of Marine Science at VIMS, but also if you're applying elsewhere. It's beneficial for you to understand what type of admissions process that institution is utilizing, and then cultivate your application and your admissions process to meet their practices. Some general details about our application. If you are excited and interested in applying to the School of Marine Science, our application is open right now. You can be working on your application and submitting it to us. Our application will close on January 6th. So please make sure that you get all application material submitted to us by that deadline. The application components that we're requiring you to submit to us is that by the time you enroll, you'll need to have completed a bachelor's degree from an accredited institution. And then when you upload your application to us, we'll need to receive a transcript from your institution, either your undergraduate or your master's if you're looking for our PhD track. For international applicants who are located outside of the US or who have not pursued undergraduate or graduate schooling here in the US, we'll need to receive either TOEFL or IELTS scores from you. All applicants will need to upload a resume or CV, an objective statement, which I'll talk about shortly, 3 letters of recommendation, and then finally an application fee of $54 US. However, be aware that we offer a different assortment of application fee waivers. So please take a look at our website or the application itself, because we outline the different ways that you can apply for a fee waiver. And if you meet any of our criteria, please submit that application fee waiver. I'd love to review it. All these details can also be found on the website listed below. You can find it very easily, and it will outline all these details right there. A few key points that I want to draw your attention to, and you'll hear more about this from the panelist here shortly. In the application itself, there are some areas that advisors will look towards and the program director will look towards very early on, and these are a strong focal point of the application. The first is your objective statement. What you need to be aware of is that the program you're applying for will have a specific objective statement that you need to complete. If you're applying for the MS, the bypass, or the PhD track, this first objective statement is what you need to be reviewing and completing. If you're applying for the MA program, you need to be reviewing the second objective statement and completing those prompts. One thing that all of the advisors and the program director are looking for in the application review is making sure that you answer the correct information that we're asking for your objective statement for the program you're interested in applying for. And so that'll be a big part. And also, both of these objective statements are crafted in order for us to get certain information from you. So please make sure you are reviewing this thoroughly and addressing it as fully as possible. And then finally, letters of recommendation. Your letters of recommendation are really important. So please make sure when you're thinking about who you want to submit letters for you, make sure that they know you on a very personal level and can speak at that level about you. That is an important part to come through in the review process. But then also for the letters of recommendation, we see it every year. They can be a big sticking point for your application because letters of rec can come late or get not submitted at all. And if that happens, that can really impact your application because it means we maybe review it later on in the admission cycle or possibly aren't even able to review that letter for your application because it came in so late. So please make sure that you're checking back to the VIMS portal after you've submitted because you'll be able to see which of your recommenders have submitted and who have not. And then you can either ask them to resubmit or you can reach out to me in the admissions office and I can work with you to update who you want to ask your letters to be submitted from. That is enough from me, and I would now like to call up our very first panelist to join me and introduce himself. So Luke Frankel, would you please unmute yourself and join me up here and say hi to everybody?
Yeah, great. Thanks, John. My name is Luke Frankel. I'm a second year master student now at VIMS. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my career, kind of how I progressed in my education up to this point right now. So in high school, I kind of really loved science and math. I loved like all of the different sciences. I liked chemistry, physics, and biology. And so going into college, I kind of wanted to pick something where I could learn about all of them and take a wide variety of classes, kind of an interdisciplinary approach, because I didn't like any one more than the other. And I was also very passionate about protecting the environment. So going into college, kind of environmental science seemed like the perfect fit. And so I ended up going to Bowdoin College, which is a small liberal arts school located in Brunswick, Maine. And there I studied earth and oceanographic science, which kind of hit a little bit of geology and oceanography, but I kind of focused more on the oceanography because that's where I was more interested in. And early on in my time at Bowdoin, I took a biogeochemistry class that really kind of opened my eyes. I liked that it was very interdisciplinary. It kind of combined a lot of biology, chemistry, and focused on how elements cycle through ecosystems. And I really liked that because it was a good way to study how humans can perturb the environment and how those impacts can kind of go all the way through ecosystems. And so that kind of really piqued my interest. And I knew I kind of always had graduate school in the back of my mind. And I knew that that was something that I was very interested in. And while I was at Bowdoin, I had the opportunity to do a bunch of different research over the summer. So one summer I did research at a place called Stroudwater Research Center located in Avondale, Pennsylvania. And there I sampled and identified benthic macroinvertebrates in freshwater streams. And I really liked that it was applied to focusing on improving water quality in different streams and identifying where humans have impacted certain waterways. I didn't really love that I was just identifying bugs under a microscope 8 hours a day, but I really liked the applied nature of that research. And then the following summer, I kind of shifted gears from up in the watershed out into the open ocean. And I did a summer RU at the University of Delaware where I looked at satellite remote sensing research and used it to kind of identify phytoplankton growth regions in the Northwest Atlantic. And for those of you who have done summer RUs, I'd say it's very similar to what graduate school is like in terms of the research side of things, in terms of like doing an independent project, having a lot of freedom, but also having some slight guidance of an advisor. So at least from my experience in my RU, it's very similar to the research I'm doing at VIMS. And in the satellite remote sensing research, I really enjoyed it because it was working with large data sets, and I really learned how to use R and do computer programming and large data analysis. And so I continued doing satellite remote sensing during my senior year at Bowdoin, but I shifted up to the Gulf of Maine and did my research there. And so then during my senior year, I started reaching out to graduate programs, and I kind of wanted to combine this love for working with large data sets, but also like water quality. And I also kind of wanted to tie in. I really enjoyed biogeochemistry and saw that was a good way to study kind of human perturbations to the environment. And so I was fortunate enough to find my advisor at VIMS through actually my advisor at Bowdoin at the time recommended me to look at this advisor at VIMS because she knew my interests. And my current advisor, Dr. Margie Friedrichs, her research kind of aligns exactly with everything I just said. And so here at VIMS, I'm studying how management efforts over the past 30 years have impacted water quality in Chesapeake Bay, specifically dissolved oxygen. So I really like it's kind of in between the streams and the open ocean, combining skills of both. And I'm studying like how the direct impact of management efforts that have taken place impacted the biogeochemistry in Chesapeake Bay. And so I look forward to talking more kind of about how I found my advisor later on in the panel.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Luke. I'd now like to welcome our second panelist to come up and introduce herself.
So hey everyone, my name is Rachel Dixon. I am a second-year PhD student in the Fisheries to Science department here at VIMS. I knew I wanted to go into marine science since I did an after-school program way back in middle school. And I decided then to complete my undergraduate work with a major in marine biology at UNC Wilmington. And I fell in love with fish in particular while taking an ichthyology course. And it led to me completing a senior research thesis, also working with fish. After I graduated, I went right into a master's program at the University of Delaware, and I found out there how different grad school is from undergraduate work. So once that wrapped up, I decided to take a break to not only recharge my school batteries, but also explore some other career options and get some more practical experience while expanding my professional networks. A PhD was always sort of in the back of my mind. So I spent my break trying to be open to different opportunities to gain professional skills that I thought could benefit me back in grad school or in a future career. So I ended up spending about 5 years wearing 2 different hats. My main job was working with a nonprofit group called the Chesapeake Research Consortium and the Chesapeake Bay Program, which is the partnership that's leading the effort to restore Chesapeake Bay. And then I spent my Wednesday evenings teaching a biology lab at a small liberal arts college on the eastern shore of Maryland. So I was getting some work experience and some teaching experience at the same time. I realized that I really enjoyed teaching and outreach, but I also wanted to get back to doing research and working with fish. And where those interests overlapped was interacting and working with students, especially at the college level. So to pursue a career where I could do that, I knew I needed a PhD. So that brought me to VIMS. While working here in the Bay region, I had the opportunity to work with scientists in a variety of fields, many of whom are faculty here at VIMS. So I got familiar with not only the research that was being done at different labs at VIMS, but the community in general. VIMS' big role in advisory service really supported my goal to do science that could have direct impacts on restoration and conservation efforts. So in my case, on ecologically important fisheries in the Bay region. I really love this area as well, and I'd been living in the Mid-Atlantic for several years, so VIMS felt like a natural next step for me and checked a lot of boxes for what I was looking for in my next graduate program. VIMS was my first choice for a school for a PhD, and when I applied, it's been a really great experience so far and a wonderful community that I'm grateful to be a part of.
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate that. I'd now like to invite Molly Mitchell to come and join me up here and talk a little bit about yourself.
Great. Thanks, John. So I was actually a environmental science major when I was in college. And I didn't actually have any particular interest in the marine science world. I mean, other than it had some neat aspects. But I was fortunate both to get involved in internships in an REU program, and also to have Dr. Cindy Van Dover, who's a deep sea biologist, came and taught at William and Mary at the time I was there. And so both of these things made me really interested in marine science. And so I came to VIMS to get my master's degree. At the time I got my master's degree, I was not planning to stay in academia. I was intending to go out and work for federal government or an NGO, more in the management realm of things. And I did, during my MS program, I did 3 summer internships with the Fish and Wildlife Service, USGS, and National Park Service, which was actually, it was very unusual for VIMS at the time. It's still very unusual for an MS student to do internships. This is an important part of our MA program, though, because internships is how you build your network, and it's how you build your job skills. So that was a great experience. And after I graduated from VIMS, I went out and I worked for a local government in the environmental division, which there were some things I really enjoyed about it, but it was a regulatory position, which is a little different from a management position. And I did not enjoy the regulatory world. So eventually I returned to VIMS doing research and advisory. So sort of on that management side of things, so I'm doing research that's meant to be applied by managers and helping managers and planners understand how to use the research in their work. And my work is mostly focused on coastal wetlands, and I study sea level rise, status, and trends, and then how the two connect with each other. So what is happening to our coastal systems and our coastal localities under changing sea level rise. So after some time there, I decided that I was probably going to stay in academia, and I went back to school and I did my PhD here at VIMS, which I graduated in 2018. So I've been through the application process twice at VIMS, and both times it's been kind of the same, even though those were pretty far apart. And the pictures up there are just showing you just really the wide range of things. This is what's really important to me about this is why I ended up staying at VIMS, is the opportunity to engage in all aspects of science, not just to do the research. So the two pictures at the bottom are me out in the field. We're doing research on marshes, and then I'm looking at the impacts of hardening shorelines and how that changes the composition of the animals that live on the shorelines. And then the upper two pictures, one of them I'm talking to the Virginia Coastal Policy Clinic, which is a law school that I talk to their class once a year to help explain to them the science behind the policies that they're going to be examining. And the other one is from a Senate briefing where I was talking about sea level rise in the Chesapeake Bay and the threats of that. So there's this wide spectrum of things you can engage in. And this is actually what really excites me about the MA program and why I took the position as the director, is that we do really world-class science at VIMS. We have researchers with an amazing amount of experience and who study really interesting things. And we've always had a role where we, take that into the advisory and we work with people to help understand, but really educating people who can take that and go and make it part of their career means there's a way to make the research even more impactful. So now it's not just you working with someone who's in the policy or law world, but it's someone with the same background I have going into a policy or law or education field or a communication field, and being able to take that background and help use it to change the kind of decisions that we're making.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Molly. Now, finally, I'd like to invite Dr. BK Song to come join me. And BK, I'd love to have you introduce yourself to everybody.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you, John and Sally, to organizing this wonderful webinar first. Well, I wish I had this kind of seminar when I was looking for grad school 26 years ago. So my career and my past is academic past is quite different from others. I was born and raised in South Korea, and I graduated college majoring in agriculture biology. And before I graduated, I had a chance to have the summer internship in the environmental lab, was examining the water quality, and that promoted me to idea to study environment and getting more interesting about how to remove the pollution in the any type, especially aquatic ecosystem. So instead of looking for the graduate school in Korea, I was looking for the school in US. So, and I applied several, and in particular, I was interested in the environmental science program at Rutgers University, where it has very excellent faculties working on the microbial remediation work for these various types of organic contaminants. So I was lucky enough to get it in that master's program first and studying, and I met my lifetime mentor, Dr. Roberto Pallaroni. He was the true microbiologist. I was not ready for that microbiology study before I met him, because my BS program is more agricultural stuff and to do more macro scale ecology aspect to it and cultivation idea to it. And so he taught me from the beginning, and I was able to learn from him and completed master with him. And then I was able to meet another advisor at Rutgers, same program, and was able to finish my PhD in 2000. So I had a degree in the PhD in environmental science, not a marine science. And interesting is when I was looking for the postdoctoral position, I met Dr. Bess Ward, who is a premier biological oceanographer and marine microecologist. She offered me to work in her lab, and I spent 4 years in the lab from 2000 to 2004. That's where I transformed myself from environmental microbiologist to marine microbiologist. And then I had a job at UNCW. It's interesting to know Rachel also had a PS degree from UNCW. I was a faculty member in marine biology and biology department at UNCW from 2004 to 2012. So I was there for 8 years as faculty member. I had a very active program. I have 10 graduate students and large numbers of undergraduate mentoring there. And then I moved to VIMS 2013 and been here 8 years. Has another active program with all the PhD students. So my interest in coming into the idea of what coming into, I had a lot of opportunity meeting people from my career, and that's how I collaborate with them and then make myself to be into the marine microbiologist or the microecologist. And my research is focusing on the nitrogen cycle in various ecosystems, and also working on oysters, how the microbiomes in oysters and other animals, and also studying microplastic in the environment, examining the contamination level, or also how those microplastic affecting to the microorganism. So those are big program I have. And what I noticed is something interesting from my career is when I look back to the faculty member being in UNCW, where I had 10 graduate student MS program. And here at VIMS, I have 7 students in PhD. I see the different levels of the involvement and commitment. And especially for PhD student has to develop to be an independent researcher. And the MS student is more trained, a kind of professional training one level, and then getting into be professional researcher in the future. But in the other hand, PhD level, you have to be independent. You have to be the independent principal investigator, like even academia or government level or company. You have to be independent researcher leading the team. As a leadership job, you have to carry on to it. So that's what I learned from my career, being in this academia from my graduate school, about 25 years being living in US. I realized I have different types of hat. I've been wearing it, and I've been trying to adapting to the different roles I have to carry on to it. Right now, I'm in the also associate professor of microbiology at VIMS, and also I'm a chair of admission committee, which I started this year. But I was being in the admission committee for last 8 years since I moved to VIMS. So I've been going through a lot of application processes, and I found that as I'm moving into the different levels of my career, my duties has extended, and also getting more into the idea of diversifying myself, and then also adapting. You always feel like you're in the places learn new things coming in, and then making advance for the future, and then also helping others. One great thing about my job is I'm always working with the student. My great joy is to see how student making success, and being the independent researcher, and also being my colleague and peer eventually. That's what I see my best joy and best awarding as being an academic professor here.
Thank you so much, PK. with that, I'd like to welcome all my panelists to come back on and join us up here. And we're now going to get into the heart of some of the admissions process and hear from them about what that had been like for each of them. So I'd like to really kick it off with Luke and Rachel. I would love to hear from both of you about really what each of your individual admissions processes had been like. Rachel, I know you applied for both your master's and PhD, so you can talk a bit about that. But maybe Luke, you want to talk about what the full admissions process had been like and how it felt, and any details you'd like to let people know about.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So it all kind of started for me. I always kind of knew I wanted to look at grad school. And then in the summer before my senior year, I really started looking on a ton of different websites. I would look up like a ton of different, like I know oceanography, like VIMS, ton of different schools, and you'd like just go to their faculty page and just look at all their research interests. And I kind of did that for a while, kind of identified a couple people, and then kind of just shot emails, sent out a ton of emails. And some people, once you're like talk to a lot of professors, you just notice how many emails they get. They really just get flooded with so many emails. So you really, if they don't reply to you, give them like a week or so is what I did. And then kind of keep following up until they finally get a response. And some might say, I don't have funding, I'm not taking graduate students. Others say they will. So I kind of hit that. And then once I kind of identified the schools that I was going to apply to, and that the advisors seemed like they had research interests aligned with me, then you kind of go forward and look at the website and the admissions and see what the different applications and start that. And I know for me, it was kind of a little bit of a stressful time being a senior. You have to finish up your classes. Sometimes like senior fall can be a big course load. You might be juggling like a research project too. So it definitely is like a lot of work. But yeah, it's never too late. I actually found my advisor at VIMS pretty late compared to the other one, like kind of a couple months in, like in like October, I think was when I really, so it's never too late to find an advisor and reach out. You just never know.
That's very true. I don't think it's ever too late. You can always try and make that contact. Rachel, do you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, my experience was pretty similar to Luke's, but the difference is when I was applying to my master's program, I didn't realize that you needed to contact a specific faculty advisor and develop that relationship. It was more than just applying to the school or the program. So now that I knew that this time around, really similar to Luke, I did a lot of research online, looking at different departmental web pages, looking at a couple recent papers of faculty that worked in areas that I was interested in. And what I did was I created an email template that just sort of outlined my experience and how I thought I could contribute to that lab. And I sent that around to those individuals with a copy of my CV. I probably contacted around 15 or 16 people for this, for my PhD. I looked at institutions around the country, even though I really wanted to stay in the Bay Area. I didn't want to exclude any opportunities or put all my eggs in one basket. And like Luke, I had to follow up a little bit with a few people. And I probably heard back from about 2/3 that said they weren't taking on any students or they didn't have funding. And just so you all know, that is very common, and definitely don't take it personal. It's just the reality of the situation. And but the good thing is you do find a few folks that are open to taking students, and then you have a conversation with them. And if your interests align with theirs, then you can move forward from there.
Perfect. Thank you both so much. So then I wouldn't mind hearing from the both of you. I know, Rachel, you kind of talked about it, but what really was it that made you choose VIMS? Was it just the research, or was it the location? Were there anything in particular that really made the decision for you?
Yeah, I can start. The research was really what drove me. My advisor, the research really kind of just aligned with everything, my experience and what I was looking for. But it wasn't just the research that sold me. I'd say definitely the community at VIMS, and also the background and the location. Being close, I kind of have always been wanting to do applied research, and am interested in getting into potentially a government job after. So the location to DC was also kind of a draw to me. And my lab specifically collaborates a lot with a lot of government people from the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality, Maryland Department of Natural Resources, then the Bay program, which is like mixed up with people from the EPA and stuff like that. So that definitely drew me. And then also the graduate school community is really strong at VIMS. There are some places I went and they didn't have a ton of grad students. Like when I visited and interviewed at other schools, didn't have a ton of students. There wasn't really a vibrant collaborative community. And at VIMS, we have like a decent number of graduate students. It's a good community. You all do things outside of just work together too. So that was definitely another like final selling point after the advisor research relationship.
Yeah, for me as well, not only the research and the graduate community, which really stood out to me at VIMS, but just the opportunities that are available to graduate students. If you're interested in education and outreach, there are opportunities to TA or to teach a course. There's a wonderful outreach program here that you can get involved in different ways, and other professional opportunities like applying and traveling to conferences, and just to really develop those professional tools and skills on top of the courses and the research that you're doing.
Perfect. I love those answers. Thank you so much. Now, the flip side, I'd love to hear from some of our faculty members who probably receive all those countless emails from prospective students. So I wonder if BK, Molly, if you would like to talk about what it's like being on your side of the admissions process and talk about your interactions that you've had with prospective students, what worked, what didn't work, specifically for those research tracks. How did students reach out, and how do you like to have those interactions?
So, John, also there's a couple of questions in the Q&A. I think that's all related. I can address them together. So VIMS is different from other schools. So we have a small number of faculty members. We really like to have more personal contact with students or advanced, like how Luke and Rachel mentioned already. So as an applicant, you should contact your faculty of interest and see whether your research interests align with the faculty's interests, research component activity. And so my case is student coming to my lab is microbiology and microecology and nitrogen cycle, all that my focusing area. And when they contact me advanced, they send me email, but I'm always asking them to send me their CV. I don't expect to have their whole personal statement as first contact, but at least I want to have a decent CV. But I noticed that a lot of students doesn't know how to prepare professional CV, resume. So that all coming out very general information of work experience, like something like, oh, I was working on the restaurant and this like a retail store. And these are not the one we are looking for. We are looking for what your research experience is. Even maybe you have a limited experience, maybe from the courses or classes, lab or something into it, but still it's good to provide some detail in the CV or resume. That's the way at least faculty can have idea about what potential of the student is. And of course, my case is I contact the older student, whoever contact me, and then discuss with going through their CV and then see that and know what their interest is. But also another thing you need to develop is not just too general idea of, oh, for example, a lot of students contact me, oh, I'm interested in about environmental pollution. And so there's a lot of environmental pollution you can think about. Those two general area. And then you have to think of what's the specific area you want to looking into it. And what is to your, like 3 years or 5 years in graduate school, what you want to working on. So you have something more developed idea. You can, as Rachel said, you can read the papers of faculties and see what kind of research area each faculty working on. That gives you some idea to looking into it. That actually coming to the idea of what stick out the most of application for me is when I look at those research experience component and also any product. So it's good to have, if you have any attendance at attending the conference or even papers, even any report you wrote, that's great to add in your resume and CV, and also mention those in your personal statement. Personal statement, because we want to know the students why you're applying to marine science and why you're applying to VIMS. Those are all coming associated with you understanding about our program, but also that's a great place you explain what you did, what your research component, why your potential is much greater than any other applicant. That's the best place. We have 750 word limit, but that's the place you can express yourself well. And also you could ask, when you're asking for the letter reference from your referee, the person who's writing the reference letter, ask them to emphasize what you did in the research component. That will be another big plus, because when we see what you have stated in your CV or resume, and as we reading from the evaluation from your reference, that give us much greater way sticking out your application and more into think about the future direction to think about it. Okay, so that's what I have now. I think there's a question for MA. Maybe Molly, you can take it over to it.
Yes, I'd be happy to. With the MA program, we are, again, we're looking to get to know you and what it is that you are bringing to the program, what it is you're hoping to get and take away from the program. So both of those things are really important to us. But we are not actually looking for research experience. If you've had it, that's great. But if you don't have it, that doesn't count against you at all. So we're really looking for more what kind of interdisciplinary experiences you've had that have driven you to this interest in having this background in marine science, but then taking it and applying it in a different way. And so that can be, it can be any kind of experience you've had. If you've done internships, that's fantastic. If you've done volunteer work, that's great. I think it will vary a lot depending on what your interests are. So if you're really interested in education, maybe you've worked, with school children, teaching marine science, that kind of thing, you could put that in your application. If you're more interested in science communication, maybe there's some experience you've had with that you can bring, or just with communication in general, but you're interested in taking it in a marine science direction now. So that's kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for, you're kind of the holistic view of you as a person. And so what you can bring to the program. And then when you get to the program, what are you hoping to get out of it? What is it? What is your goal? What do you want to walk away from this program with? So those are the really big things we're looking for. One of the other prompts that we asked about is what you wanted to do for a capstone and internship. That is really to help us place you and to find a faculty mentor that fits with your interests and goals. So that's kind of what you want to be thinking about there. You don't have to have a fully formed, I want to intern with this group doing this thing. But if you're saying, well, I really want to do communication and I'm most interested in fisheries and climate change. Okay, so that's kind of what I want to bring together. That kind of information is really helpful to us. It's really useful.
So there's a couple other questions. So one about diversity and inclusion and equality. That is a great question. So we don't have any restriction to adding. So actually, we've been, as admission committee, we discussed about having separate statement to adding in future application, not this year. But if you're willing to express, your personal experience background in the personal statement, that's fine. Actually, that can be a good way we can understand better for you. And another question about the letter reference, recommendation letter. Yeah, it is better to written by a faculty member. And even though you're closely working with a graduate student, but it's still better to have academic professors. Or sometimes we see, especially a lot of athletes, they asking the letter from athlete coaches. Those are fine because they are more close to it. But sometimes they have some letter from the job manager, like when they do some sort of summer job. It's a letter from a supervisor or something. But those are slightly, we have to be careful how we evaluating, because that's not really relate to, you have showing some potential of student, but it's not necessarily showing your capability of research and education. I'm talking about MS and PhD program, not MA program. MA program is a very different way to thinking about it. And so my case is, I have also big programs, so several undergraduates still working with me, but also they work with the graduate students more closely. when I writing the letter, I also ask my graduate student add some statement from there. And then I including those, the comment from graduate student in my letter to help the student to getting better letter recommendation.
Yeah, so I would like to add to that really quickly, just with the MA program. Of course, if you are coming right from undergraduate or you're a few years out of undergraduate and you have a faculty member from your undergraduate experience you'd like to have write your letter of recommendation, that's fine. However, particularly if you've been out of college for a while, we would rather get a letter from someone who knows you now and knows your current skills, and can really write about your personal, current strengths and current interests and that kind of thing. And so we're very open in the MA program for getting letters of recommendation from, supervisors fine, a coworker honestly is fine. So we're not as focused on the need for an academic to write letters of recommendation.
So yeah, if you already have a job in professional working there, and you might not able, maybe your academic advisor maybe a long time couldn't remember much about you. So it's fine to have your supervisor writing the letter, those cases, that's fine. So, but still not all the letter from your company or your workplaces. You need to have at least one letter from your academic professors. And there's another question about because we are living in very unusual time because of the pandemic. A lot of research plan has been canceled, and I know a lot of undergraduate students actually contact me about whether they can do any working in my lab, but we have to be very careful of accepting the student in. So it is true. So, but if that is still case, it's still good to mention in your personal statement. So what types of research plan you had, and what topic, and what was your idea to putting together? At least you have some idea of the research direction for that project. It's worth to mentioning it.
So there's a question really quickly about GRE scores. We are not taking GRE scores this year. So you will not include them in your application process.
Yeah.
And your faculty advisors should not be requesting them, and you don't need to provide them. So
That's right.
They will not be considered during your admissions consideration. I'd also just like to continue a little bit about kind of what Molly was going off on for Casey's question about skills and experience for the MA application, to just say also for like academic experiences or in the CV, we would love to see how the narrative that you're kind of wanting to follow really lays out. So as she said, like volunteer experiences or clubs or activities that speak to it. Or in your academics, if you pursued a minor or a double major in that interdisciplinary area that you're considering, those are great pairings that we would love to see in applications and will speak really well to it. So we just would like to see like the interests that you're speaking to are kind of areas that you've been navigating your way towards through the process. And so that's like a really valuable thing for us to see.
Yeah. And another question coming up, MS application for the capstone paper, those. So something is not published, but you wrote some sort of report or any types of thesis, something, it's good to mentioning. But of course, we cannot access to those documents. So you can provide very short summary in your CV or resume, or you can mentioning some detail in your personal statement. So that'll give us some better idea what type. So it's another thing. A lot of students may have a research experience, but not much writing of the scientific, papers. So that's another big thing you can bring it up. If you have any writing experience, that's a really important part. So you can be excellent researcher, making great progress in project. If you don't publish any paper, you have nowhere to go afterward. You have to publish the paper to get a job. So that is writing component is very, very important. So when you're reading those personal statements, we also evaluating your some levels of writing skill set as well.
Molly, this question would be for you, and this is from Casey. For the MA program resume, would you prefer a strictly one-page professional resume or a bit longer, like 2 pages, so that goes further back to include all relevant college information?
Yeah, I mean, I think a slightly longer one, if that helps you kind of showcase your experience is great, because it gives us a little more understanding of, what your path has been. Sometimes professional resumes can be very, because they're supposed to all fit on one page, they can be very brief. I don't think you should feel like you're required to write more than one page. If you feel like that one page captures all of your activities and does a good job of showcasing your skills, that's fine. But I also, I'm not going to count it against you. I think if you need more space to go ahead and explain your path, I think that's fine too. I know when I get letters from students looking for faculty, that what really stands out to me is someone who it's clear that they have a goal, that they know what they want to do. And that really is it's hard to explain what it is that shows that. But when you read some of these letters, it's clear there are some students who are looking to go to graduate school, and that there are some students who really have a vision of where they want to be. And that vision really does stand out when I'm reading through these letters.
So for the CV, the page numbers, well, depending on the things you can add it in, so probably 1 or 2 pages that should be enough. Luke and Rachel, do you remember how many pages you guys should have it in CV?
I just actually looked at mine, and mine was like just barely 2 pages. So yeah, pretty short. I just basically kind of like research experience. Yeah, not too much like professional organizations, any awards you received as an undergrad, like honor roll or kind of things like that, and any fellowships you got in undergraduate are good things to add.
I would say that having also reviewed a majority of applications, I've seen 1 page, like tight and neat professional CVs and resumes. And I've also, the record for last year was, I think, 18 pages long. And I wouldn't recommend submitting that. That's a lot to review. So maybe at this level, 18 pages is really ambitious. So I'd recommend keeping it below that, below that.
Yeah, for MS, so that's right. So the question about MS program. So the question was whether MS student need to contact potential advisor, discuss about research topic, or it just was told by advisor based on the funding. So MS programs are different from PhD. So that's from my perspective. So I see, but still, depending on the students, the interest and involvement of research, MS student can be another independent researcher as well. But still, you need to somehow, again, even you're applying to MS program, you still need to know what types of research you want to getting into it. And of course, all that is also, even PhD also align with the funding. So as Rachel mentioned, we love to have students, but we are also need money to support it. So all the faculty is like a small business owner. We have to bring the money to federal and state government to provide the financial support to all the students. So as a faculty, we spend a lot of time in computer writing grant. So that is a part of it, but still we have, again, as some set of the direction we have, but we also have creativity, innovation from students coming out, how to reach the goal. Maybe Luke, you can mention more about it.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of both. Like, I think generally advisors kind of have a project for a lot of masters. At least kind of my advisor was this way. They kind of have a project in mind, and you can kind of operate under that depending on the funding. But I think if you come up with an idea and it falls under the funding and you want to like add the component to it, they're definitely open. I feel like they're not expecting that a lot of, and some may kind of varies advisor to advisor, but I think if you bring up an idea, and I think they're definitely more willing to like have that be incorporated to a piece of it. But generally, I think a lot of advisors kind of have a project in mind with the funding that they have when they take on a student for the master's.
Yeah, another question about the fellowship. Yeah, that's good to mention in your statement. So is we also, when we interview students, we also provide some other information, not just NSF fellowship, and we also have the Sea Grant fellowship and several other graduate student fellowships available. So it's good to mention in your personal statement.
I'd like to real quick say we're pretty much out of time. But for those of you who are interested, we have been able to collect some research opportunities for both Master of Science and PhD research projects. Just as BK and Luke were saying, some faculty have projects specifically in mind that they're trying to recruit a student for. You can find those projects on our website under the tab for available opportunities for MS and PhD students. Faculty have applied for research and grants and have specific funding for a student to complete a very specific project. So if those are an area of interest, please follow the details there. But with like the very last second, I'd love to do a speed round through you all to just ask, what is the one piece of advice you would like to provide to individuals who are thinking about applying to graduate school in marine science? Let's go reverse order. BK, do you want to go first?
Contact your potential advisor. Go ahead of time and see what kind of project in mind, and also have a discussion on that. So I had, I had student contact me a month ago, and then I had the interview with her. She has a very general idea. She just want to study environmental pollution, and I guide her to think about what's the direction to take a look at it. So again, it's like depending on the advisor, they give you some idea and direction to think about. So it's good to have a contact your potential advisor as soon as possible.
Thank you. Molly?
I think for me, it's really to spend some time thinking about what it is you want to do down the road, whether you're an MA applicant or you're an MS or a PhD applicant, that you're not, we're not locking you into anything, but having that idea of why you want this degree and what it's going to help you accomplish, I think is very useful.
Rachel?
I would say to listen to your heart and your gut about what feels like a good fit, both for a program as well as an advisor, if that's part of the program that you're interested in. And also consider where you want to study and live. Depending on your program, you're talking about a few years, up to 5 years for a PhD. So it's a pretty substantial commitment. Visit the campus and meet your prospective advisor if you can. You meet their current students or past students if possible, and ask lots of questions, not only about the research, but about just the type of environment that lab or that program fosters. And like Molly said, your career goals can and will change. So I would think about the degree or the experience that is necessary for you to be competitive in the job that you want to have someday.
Luke, finish it out.
Yeah, a lot of it has already been, what I was going to say has already been said. Kind of following up on what Molly and Rachel touched on, it's always good to have the end career goal and like what you need to get there in mind. And I think a lot of your graduate experience, you kind of it's what you make of it. So kind of having that end goal in mind helps you kind of navigate that. And then also kind of what Rachel said, like getting out and talking to students, talking to the advisor a lot. And it's a lot of the times, like from my experience and talking to other grad students at tons of different programs, it's the advisor that makes and breaks it for a lot of people. If you have a good advisor and your work styles are really compatible, it works great. And then if you talk to like a bunch of, or there are any disgruntled grad students, it's often kind of the advisor, the relationship just doesn't match well. So I think for a lot of it, especially probably not applicable for the MA, but for the MS and PhD, it's kind of that advisor relationship is really kind of the key. So I think that's something to look for. And if you can pair that with like the overall community and the class work that fits well, it's kind of a double bonus.
Thank you all so much. So with that, I'd like to go into my closing remarks. So thank you everybody for tuning in to listen to us. We really appreciate it. This was the fourth and final segment of our 4-part webinar series. So I really appreciate everybody who's come out tonight and to all the previous ones. Also, with the end of this, we'll be converting all 4 webinars into video recordings that we'll upload to the VIMS YouTube. So you should be seeing those appear on the VIMS YouTube here, hopefully after Thanksgiving, but we'll let everybody know once those are online so that you can go back and review material that we've previously covered. If you have any questions or inquiries about the program or anything that we said tonight, it's all online at our VIMS website. So please check that out. Also, if you would prefer to have more interaction or one-on-one conversations, email us. You can email us at admissions@vims.edu, or you can email me personally at jmgriffin@vims.edu. Happy to help answer whatever questions you might have or discuss this further. You can also follow us on social media. If you use Twitter, we're at those two handles at VIMS News or at VIMS Grad Dean. Great way to keep in touch. Or if you're a Facebook user, you can find us on Facebook as well. If at the end of this, you're also just dying for constant VIMS updates and information and have loved everything you've heard, you can subscribe to our e-newsletter, e-tidings. There's a few different ways that you can sign up for it, and all this information can be found online. But if you would love to have regular updates about what's going on at VIMS, this is a great way to do it. With that, you all got to sit through the last part of our webinar series. So I really appreciate everybody taking the time out of their evening to come and join us. We really appreciate it. And I look forward to hopefully hearing from a lot of you or maybe seeing you all on campus at some point. But with that, thank you so much to my panelists. I really appreciate you all taking the time, and to Sally and Bob and everybody who's helped me produce these. I really appreciate it. And with that, I hope everybody has a really great evening and that you all stay safe and healthy during this interesting fall. We really appreciate it.